BingX, a trusted global crypto exchange. Trade spot, futures, or copy top traders easily. Sign up via the link or referral code to get 30 USDT instantly, plus up to 1,500 USDT in bonuses for verification, deposit, and trading.
Hamas has declared that the remains of all deceased Israeli hostages accessible have been returned, stating that specialized recovery equipment is now required to retrieve any remaining bodies from the ruins of Gaza. This announcement comes amidst escalating threats from Israel to resume military operations if the terms of the current ceasefire are not fully honored. The handover of 2 additional bodies occurred late Wednesday, following Hamas's earlier return of the remains of 7 of the 28 known deceased hostages. An 8th body was also returned, which Israel stated did not belong to a former hostage. Shortly thereafter, the Ezzedine al-Qassam brigades issued a statement on social media, asserting they had fulfilled its commitment to the agreement by handing over all living Israeli prisoners in its custody, as well as the corpses it could access. As for the remaining corpses, it requires extensive efforts and special equipment for their retrieval and extraction. This development follows a period of intense negotiations and a temporary cessation of hostilities. Since Monday, under a ceasefire agreement initially brokered with significant diplomatic effort, Hamas has released 20 surviving hostages to Israel. In exchange, Israel has freed nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners from its jails. The exchange has been a focal point of ongoing international attention, highlighting the complex and sensitive nature of prisoner and hostage diplomacy. However, the fragile peace is under considerable strain. Israel's Minister of Defense issued a stark warning on Wednesday, threatening to reignite combat if Hamas fails to adhere to the continuing stipulations of the deal. If Hamas refuses to comply with the agreement, Israel, in coordination with the United States, will resume fighting and act to achieve a total defeat of Hamas, to change the reality in Gaza and achieve all the objectives of the war, a statement from his office declared, signaling a potentially grave escalation. Adding to the pressure on Hamas, a prominent figure in the brokering of the deal voiced his readiness to allow Israeli forces to recommence fighting in Gaza should Hamas not uphold its obligations under the ceasefire accord. Israel will return to those streets as soon as I say the word. If Israel could go in and knock the crap of them, they'd do that, the individual was quoted as saying to CNN, emphasizing the dire consequences of non-compliance. This forceful rhetoric underscores the high stakes involved and the limited patience of key international players. In an effort to maintain momentum and provide context, senior U.S. advisors briefed the media late on Wednesday, indicating that Hamas is indeed endeavoring to uphold its pledge to return the bodies of deceased hostages. They described the retrieval process from Gaza as exceptionally challenging due to the extensive devastation, noting that the territory has been pulverized. The advisors acknowledged the initial disappointment and outrage when only a limited number of bodies were initially returned, but highlighted the subsequent efforts to expedite the process as quickly as intelligence allowed. Discussions are reportedly underway regarding a program of rewards for individuals assisting in the location of deceased hostages' remains, with Turkey, a key mediator, reportedly in talks to provide specialized experts for body recovery operations in Gaza. Meanwhile, humanitarian aid continues to flow into Gaza, with preparations ongoing for the reopening of the main Rafah crossing on Thursday. However, Israel has issued a significant warning. The crossing could be shut down and aid supplies reduced if the pace of body returns is deemed too slow. This linkage between humanitarian assistance and the sensitive issue of hostage remains underscores the intricate web of demands and concessions shaping the current situation. The political landscape within Israel also presents challenges. A prominent national security minister, an avowed opponent of the current ceasefire plan, publicly criticized the aid delivery as a disgrace and accused Hamas of dishonesty regarding the return of hostage bodies, further complicating efforts to maintain domestic support for the agreement. Aid agencies and the United Nations are issuing urgent calls for Israel to open additional crossings, stressing the critical need for a massive influx of humanitarian aid to alleviate the severe suffering in the devastated territory. They emphasize that withholding aid from civilians is an unacceptable tactic and that facilitating its delivery is a legal obligation. Reports from aid agencies indicate that thousands of tons of essential supplies, including food and medical provisions, are ready for distribution, awaiting unimpeded access. Humanitarian officials in Gaza City have painted a grim picture of desperation, with hundreds of thousands lacking basic necessities like clean water and food, and many more experiencing severe hardship. The situation remains dire, with the need for a substantial and sustained increase in aid delivery being paramount. The existing deal also mandates the return of the bodies of 360 Palestinians by Israel. Accounts from medical professionals detail distressing findings among the 90 bodies returned by Israeli authorities so far, with many exhibiting signs of torture and execution, including blindfolds, bound hands, and fatal gunshot wounds. These graphic details highlight the profound human cost of the ongoing conflict and the deep-seated trauma experienced by all sides. The ongoing dispute over the return of bodies, alongside other unresolved critical